Bride ran to Mafia boss on her wedding day. "They're coming for you." The city held its breath. Julian Thorne didn't look like a groom. He looked like a predator. He stood in the penthouse suite, adjusting a silk tie that cost more than most men earn in a month. He checked his watch. 2:59 p.m. In exactly 60 seconds, he would walk down the aisle. He would say, "I do." And the moment he slipped the ring on Elena's finger, the accounts would freeze, the ports would lock, and Silas Vane, the man who built this city, would be erased from history. Julian smiled at his reflection. "It's done," he whispered. "The old man is obsolete." He thought he was the smartest man in the room. He thought he had won the war before the first shot was fired. But Julian made one critical mistake. He forgot that the city has ears. 4 miles away, Silas Vane sat in a corner booth of the Rusty Spoon Diner. He was 62. He wore a wool coat that smelled of rain and cheap tobacco. He didn't look like a kingpin. He looked like a grandfather waiting for a bus. "More coffee, Silas?" the waitress asked. "Please," Silas said. His voice was like gravel grinding on concrete. He didn't check his phone. He didn't check the news. He just watched the rain wash the grime off 4th Street. He knew what Julian was planning. He knew the auditors were coming. He knew the police were 5 minutes away. Most men would run. Silas just ordered pie. Then the diner went silent. Standing in the doorway was a vision that didn't belong in a cheap dive on a Tuesday. A bride. She was soaking wet. Her chest was heaving. The bottom of her $10,000 dress was stained black with street oil. It was Elena. She didn't look at the patrons. She ran straight to the old man in the corner. "Silas," she gasped, gripping the edge of the table. "You have to run, Julian. He knows everything. They're coming for you right now." Silas didn't flinch. He didn't look at the door. He slowly, deliberately placed his fork down. He looked at the terrified bride. He looked at the mud on her dress. "Elena," he said softly, "you're early." He reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a gun. He pulled out a cheap plastic flip phone. "Let them come," Silas said. "I think it's time we turned the city off." The decision to end a man's career or his life usually happens in a quiet room. It rarely happens with fanfare. It almost never happens on a wedding day. But Julian Thorne was not a man who respected tradition. He respected speed. He respected the kind of aggressive takeover that left the competition breathless and confused. Julian adjusted his silk tie in the mirror of the hotel suite. He looked good. He looked like the future. He was 32 years old, wealthy by inheritance and dangerous by choice. Today, he was marrying Elena, a woman whose family name carried enough weight to legitimize his darker business dealings. But the wedding was just the theater. The real event was scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right when the vows were being exchanged. "Is it done?" Julian asked. He didn't turn around. He spoke to the reflection of his associate Marcus, who stood near the door holding a tablet. "The transfers are queued," Marcus said. His voice was steady, but there was a tightness in his jaw. "The trucks are positioned at the docks. The auditors are ready to freeze the accounts. Once you say 'I do,' the old man is locked out. We take the ports, the unions, and the logistics hub." "And Silas?" Julian asked. "Silas Vane doesn't know a thing," Marcus replied. "He's a creature of habit. He's at that diner on 4th Street, reading the paper, drinking black coffee. He thinks today is just Tuesday." Julian smiled. It was a cold, practiced expression. He turned around, smoothing the front of his tuxedo jacket. "Silas Vane is a relic. He thinks the city runs on handshakes and loyalty. He doesn't understand that the city runs on data and leverage. We aren't just taking his business, Marcus. We are erasing his relevance." It was a bold claim. Silas Vane had run the city's waterfront for 40 years. He wasn't a gangster in the movie sense. He didn't wave guns around or shout in restaurants. He was something far more difficult to remove. He was a system. He was the reason the garbage trucks ran on time. He was the reason the construction sites had steel. He was the reason the city breathed. "Are you sure Elena doesn't suspect?" Marcus asked. "Elena is a bride," Julian laughed, checking his watch. "She's worried about the flowers and the seating chart. She has no idea that her marriage is actually a merger acquisition. By the time she realizes her father's old friend Silas is destitute, it will be too late." Julian walked to the window. He looked out at the city skyline. It looked peaceful from up here. He liked that. He liked the idea that chaos could be happening on the streets while he stood above it, untouched. "They're coming for him," Julian whispered to himself, "and he won't even see the wave until it pulls him under." He underestimated one thing. He underestimated the fact that people talk. He underestimated the loyalty that Silas Vane commanded, not through fear but through decades of keeping his word. And most of all, he underestimated Elena. He thought she was just a prop in a white dress. He didn't realize that she had ears, she had a brain, and she had a conscience. "Let's go," Julian said. "I have a city to conquer." He walked out of the suite, confident that the day belonged to him. It was the kind of confidence that usually precedes a very long fall. Silas Vane sat in the corner booth of the Rusty Spoon Diner, exactly where he sat every Tuesday morning. He was 62 years old, but he looked older. His face was lined with the kind of deep grooves that come from worrying about things so other people don't have to. He wore a gray wool coat that had gone out of style 10 years ago and a flat cap that shadowed his eyes. He didn't look like a kingpin. He didn't look like a boss. He looked like a retired grandfather who might fix your sink for free if you asked nicely. "Refill Silas?" the waitress asked. Her name was Maria. She had worked here for 20 years. Silas had paid for her daughter's braces, though he never mentioned it, and she never thanked him out loud. That was the agreement. "Please, Maria," Silas said. His voice was like dry leaves scraping together. "And maybe a slice of that cherry pie. I feel like celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Maria asked, pouring the steaming black liquid into his thick ceramic mug. "Quiet," Silas said. "I'm celebrating the quiet." He looked out the window. It was raining, a soft gray drizzle that slicked the streets and made the neon signs hiss. Silas watched the traffic. He counted the trucks. He knew which ones were carrying steel, which ones were carrying produce, and which ones were carrying things that weren't on the manifest. He didn't own the trucks, but he decided when they moved. That was the difference between ownership and power. He took a sip of coffee. It was bitter, hot, and perfect. Silas checked his watch. It was an old mechanical piece, wind up. It lost about a minute every week, but Silas didn't mind. He liked the ritual of winding it. It reminded him that nothing works unless you put energy into it. "You hear about the wedding?" Maria asked, leaning against the counter. "The Thorne boy marrying Elena." "I heard," Silas said. He didn't look up from his newspaper. "Big affair, lots of money." "Too much money," Maria muttered. "New money screams, old money whispers." Silas smiled into his coffee. "You're a philosopher, Maria." "I'm a waitress, Silas. We see everything." She was right. People ignored waitresses. They ignored janitors. They ignored the old men sitting in the corner of diners reading the paper. And that was why Silas knew more about the city than the mayor did. He knew that Julian Thorne was ambitious. He knew the kid was buying up warehouses, but Silas wasn't worried. Ambition was like gasoline. It was useful, but if you poured it everywhere, you just ended up burning your own house down. Then the bell above the diner door jingled. It wasn't the soft jingle of a regular customer coming in for lunch. It was a violent, frantic jingle, as if someone had thrown the door open with everything they had. Silas didn't jump. He just lifted his eyes. Standing in the doorway was a vision that didn't belong in a greasy diner on 4th Street. She was soaking wet. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her chest was heaving as she gasped for air. And she was wearing a wedding dress that probably cost more than the diner itself. The bottom of the white silk was ruined, stained black with street mud and oil. She was shivering. She looked terrified. The diner went silent. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Silas slowly folded his newspaper. He placed it next to his coffee. He didn't stand up. He just looked at her. "Elena," Silas said softly. She ran to him. She didn't walk. She ran across the checkered floor, her wet dress slapping against her legs, and collapsed into the booth opposite him. "Silas," she gasped, "you have to run." Silas didn't run. He didn't even blink. He reached across the table, picked up the napkin dispenser, and handed her a few paper squares. It was a small, practical gesture in the middle of a melodrama. That was Silas. He dealt with the immediate problem first. "Dry your face, child," Silas said. His tone was level, devoid of the panic that was radiating off of her. "You're ruining the silk." Elena took the napkins, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped them. She wiped the rain from her eyes, smearing mascara across her cheeks. She looked like a tragic painting, breathless and broken. "Did you hear me?" she whispered, leaning over the table. "You don't understand, Julian. He's not just marrying me. He's using the wedding as a distraction. They're coming for you, Silas, right now." Silas took a bite of his cherry pie. He chewed slowly, savoring the tartness. "Who is they, Elena?" "The regulators, the police, the auditors, everyone," she said, her voice rising in hysteria. "I heard him talking to Marcus. They have files. They have transfers set up. As soon as the ceremony starts, they're freezing your accounts. They're locking down the Port Authority. They're going to arrest you for racketeering and fraud. They want to bury you, Silas." Silas nodded slowly. He understood the weight of what she was saying. This wasn't a street fight. This was a bureaucratic assassination. It was clean, it was legal, and it was deadly. Julian Thorne wasn't trying to kill him. He was trying to delete him. "Why are you here, Elena?" Silas asked. "You should be walking down an aisle. You should be happy." "I can't marry a thief," she said, her voice trembling. "My father respected you. You helped him when no one else would. I couldn't let Julian do this. I just ran." Silas looked at her. He saw the loyalty in her eyes. It was a rare commodity. He also saw the immense risk she had taken. By coming here, she had destroyed her social standing, humiliated her fiancé, and put herself in the middle of a war she didn't understand. "You're a good girl," Silas said, "but you've made a mess of your dress." "Stop talking about the dress," Elena snapped. "Do you not understand? They have everything. They know about the offshore accounts. They know about the union deals. Julian said you're a relic. He said you're finished." Silas sighed. He finished his pie. He wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Elena," he said, "do you know how a bridge stays up?" She stared at him, confused. "What?" "A bridge," Silas repeated. "It stays up because of tension. Every part pushes against every other part. If you remove one piece, the tension breaks and the bridge falls." He looked out the window at the gray city. "Julian thinks I am a piece of the bridge," Silas said. "He thinks he can remove me and replace me with himself. But he is wrong. I am not a piece of the bridge, Elena. I am the gravity." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flip phone. It was cheap, plastic, and ancient. It was the kind of phone you could buy at a gas station. "Julian wants to freeze the city," Silas said, opening the phone. "Let's see what happens when the city actually freezes." He dialed a number. He didn't scroll through contacts. He knew it by heart. "It's me," Silas said into the phone. "Shut it down, all of it." He closed the phone. Elena stared at him. "What did you do?" "I took the day off," Silas said. "And if I take the day off, everyone takes the day off." The first crack in Julian Thorne's master plan didn't sound like an explosion. It sounded like a phone ringing, then another, then a dozen phones ringing all at once. Julian was standing at the altar of the cathedral. The guests were seated. The organ music was swelling. The air smelled of expensive lilies and anticipation. He was smiling, waiting for the heavy oak doors to open and for Elena to walk in. He was waiting for his victory lap. He checked his watch, 3 o'clock. Right on cue, Marcus, who was standing in the front row as the best man, tapped his ear. He had an earpiece hidden in his ear canal. He looked at Julian and gave a subtle nod. The attack had begun. The digital accounts were being seized. The police were en route to the diner. Julian's smile widened. He was a king. Then the vibration started. It wasn't a phone, it was the floor. The cathedral was located 4 blocks from the main commercial port. Usually, the port was a background hum of the city, cranes moving, trucks shifting gears, horns honking. It was the white noise of commerce. But suddenly, there was a sound that was louder than the organ. It was the sound of air brakes, thousands of them. Hiss. Simultaneously. Outside the cathedral, traffic stopped. Not just slowed down, but stopped. Marcus frowned. He tapped his earpiece again. His face went pale. He broke protocol. He stepped out of the line of groomsmen and walked up to Julian at the altar. "What are you doing?" Julian hissed, keeping his smile plastered on his face for the guests. "Get back in line." "Sir," Marcus whispered, his voice shaking, "we have a problem." "Not now," Julian said. "Where is Elena?" "We can't find Elena," Marcus said. "But that's not the problem. The trucks have stopped." "What trucks?" "All of them," Marcus said. "Every delivery truck, every sanitation truck, every construction hauler, they just stopped. They pulled over, turned off their engines, and the drivers walked away." Julian's smile faltered. "What do you mean they walked away?" "I mean they abandoned the vehicles in the middle of the street, Julian. They've blocked the intersections. They've blocked the bridges. The police squad cars that were heading to arrest Silas, they're stuck in gridlock. They can't move." Julian felt a cold prickle of sweat on his neck. "Tell the port authority to override them. Use the automated cranes." "We tried," Marcus said. "The cranes are dead. The power to the logistics grid has been cut, not from the outside but from the inside. The operators just logged off." Julian looked out at the congregation. The guests were starting to shift in their seats. They were checking their phones. A murmur of confusion was rippling through the church. "It's just a strike," Julian whispered, trying to convince himself. "It's a coincidence. Silas is reacting. He's throwing a tantrum." "It's not just the port," Marcus said, and now the fear was visible in his eyes. "The catering vans for the reception. They're stuck on the bridge, the band. Stuck in the tunnel, the florists. Stuck on the highway." Julian looked at the heavy oak doors at the back of the church. They remained closed. Elena wasn't coming. She warned him, Julian realized. The anger flared in his chest, hot and sharp. She ran to him. He turned to the priest, who looked confused. "Excuse me," Julian said to the room. He didn't sound like a king anymore. He sounded like a manager whose shift had just gone wrong. "We have a slight technical delay." He walked off the altar, grabbing Marcus by the arm. "Get the car," Julian ordered. "We can't use the car," Marcus said. "I told you, the streets are a parking lot, nothing is moving." "Then we walk," Julian snapped. "I'm going to kill that old man." Julian Thorne stepped out of the cathedral into a city that had fallen silent. The engines were off. The drivers were smoking cigarettes on the sidewalks. The city held its breath. And for the first time, Julian realized just how heavy the silence could be. The center of 4th Street in a tuxedo that cost more than the annual salary of the men he passed. He did not run. Running was for people who were late, and Julian Thorne was never late. The world was simply behind schedule. Beside him, Marcus struggled to keep up, tapping furiously on a phone that had no signal. The cellular towers were overwhelmed. When everyone in a city stops moving at once, they all pick up their phones. The network had collapsed under the weight of 1 million simultaneous complaints. "This is a stunt," Julian said. He sidestepped a puddle of oil near a stationary garbage truck. The driver of the truck was leaning against the grill, eating a sandwich. He didn't look at Julian. He looked at the sky. "It's a massive coordinated labor violation," Marcus corrected, breathless. "It's illegal. The unions have contracts. We can sue them into oblivion." "Contracts are paper," Julian said, his voice clipped. "Silas is trying to show me he has muscles. It's cute. It's nostalgic. He thinks if he stops the trucks, I'll panic. He thinks I'll come running to the diner and beg for a truce." Julian laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound that didn't echo because the heavy humidity of the stopped traffic swallowed it. "He doesn't understand the new economy," Julian continued. "He stopped the physical assets. Fine, but I control the digital assets. I own the debt on his warehouses. I own the mortgage on his sister's house. I own the servers that process the payroll for these drivers. While they eat their sandwiches, I'm deleting their pensions." They reached the corner. The diner, the Rusty Spoon, sat there like a stubborn gray rock in a stream of shiny, stalled metal. The neon sign buzzed. "Open." Julian adjusted his cufflinks. He wiped a speck of soot from his lapel. He needed to look untouched. He needed to look like a man who was simply taking a stroll before his coronation. "We go in," Julian said. "We get Elena. We tell Silas that the police are on their way on foot if necessary. We tell him that for every minute this strike lasts, I add a 0 to his prison sentence." "Julian," Marcus said, stopping. He pointed down the block. A police cruiser was parked at an angle, blocked by a cement mixer. 2 officers were standing outside the car. They weren't directing traffic. They were talking to the driver of the mixer. They were laughing. One officer accepted a light for his cigarette from the driver. "They aren't enforcing," Marcus whispered. "They're socializing." "Because they're lazy," Julian snapped. "They're taking a break because the sergeant isn't watching. It's a systemic failure of middle management. It's not a revolution, Marcus. It's just incompetence." Julian walked to the door of the diner. He didn't hesitate, he pushed it open. The bell jingled, a cheerful, ignorant sound. The diner was warm. It smelled of coffee and old grease. Silas Vane sat in the booth, looking calm. Elena sat opposite him, shivering in a waiter's oversized jacket over her wedding dress. She looked up. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. "You look ridiculous," Julian said to Elena. He didn't yell. He sounded disappointed, like a parent scolding a child who played in the mud. "Get in the car." "Oh, wait, we can't use the car. Get up. We're walking back to the hotel." "I'm not going with you," Elena said. Her voice was quiet. Julian turned his gaze to Silas. "And you think this theatrical pause saves you. It's a temporary inconvenience. Tomorrow, the lawyers will dissect you. You've just handed me the evidence to bury you forever." Silas blew on his coffee. He didn't look scared, he looked bored. "Hello, Julian," Silas said. "You're tracking mud on the floor. Maria just mopped." Silas placed his coffee cup down on the saucer. The sound was a definitive click, like a lock engaging. He looked at Julian Thorne, really looked at him, dissecting the expensive suit and the arrogance that held it together. Julian stood in the center of the diner, radiating the impatient energy of a man who believed the world was a vending machine that had just stolen his dollar. "The strike ends now," Julian said. He pulled out a chair and sat down, uninvited. He didn't sit with Silas. He sat at the adjacent table, maintaining a distance that implied superiority. "Marcus is on the line with the governor. The National Guard will be clearing the streets in an hour." "The governor," Silas mused. "Is that the one who needs the construction unions to finish the stadium before the election? Or is it the other one?" "It doesn't matter," Julian snapped. "The point is you've overplayed your hand. You stopped the trucks. Congratulations, but you can't stop the money. I've already flagged your accounts. You're bankrupt, Silas, you just don't know it yet." Silas leaned back. "You think this is about money. That's why you're going to lose." Silas pointed a calloused finger out the window. "You see that garbage truck? It's full. It was supposed to dump at the processing center an hour ago. It didn't. The processing center runs on a strict intake schedule. If they miss the window, the incinerators cool down. Reheating the incinerators takes 12 hours and $50,000 of fuel." Julian rolled his eyes. I'll pay the $50,000. I spend that on catering. It's not just the money, Silas continued, his voice steady, rhythmic. Because the incinerators are cold, the backlog piles up. The next shift of trucks can't unload. They sit full. When garbage sits full in the heat, it produces methane. It becomes a hazard. The insurance underwriters mandate a shutdown of the facility until the risk is assessed. That's 3 days. Julian drummed his fingers on the table. Fascinating. We'll hire private contractors. The private contractors use the same fuel depot, Silas said. The fuel depot is locked. The guy with the key is currently sitting in traffic on the bridge. He isn't answering his phone because he's listening to a podcast. And even if he wanted to answer, the cell towers are overloaded because everyone is calling their wives to say they're late for dinner. Elena watched Silas. She had never heard him speak like this. It wasn't a threat. It was a lesson in mechanics. And then there's the power, Silas added. The city grid relies on peak hour adjustments from the substations. The adjustments are manual. The engineers can't get to the substations. If the load isn't balanced by 5 o'clock, the automated safeties trip. Brownouts start in the financial district. Julian froze. The financial district. That was where his servers were. That was where the data lived. You wouldn't, Julian whispered. I'm not doing anything, Silas said, spreading his hands. I'm sitting here eating cherry pie. This is just gravity, Julian. You stop the people who maintain the balance. Now the balance is correcting itself. The spiral has started. You can't stop it with a lawsuit. Marcus, Julian barked, turning to his associate. Call the data center. Tell them to switch to backup generators. Marcus looked pale. I can't, sir. Why not? Because the backup generators run on diesel, Marcus whispered. And the diesel delivery truck is parked outside the police station. The driver is having a cigarette with the sergeant. For the first time, Julian Thorne didn't look like a king. He looked like a man standing in a room where the oxygen was slowly being pumped out. He looked at Elena. You did this, he hissed. You told him. I told him you were coming, Elena said. He did the rest. This is extortion, Julian said, standing up. I won't capitulate to a mechanic. Then sit, Silas said calmly, and watch the lights go out. The first phone call that actually went through to Julian's satellite phone, the one he kept for emergencies, was not from the governor. It was from his mother. She was at the cathedral. Julian, she said, her voice tight with the specific social panic of the upper class. The air conditioning has stopped. The guests are sweating. The senator is asking why there are no hors d'oeuvres. Someone said the catering van is being looted on the highway. Is this true? It's a delay, Mother, Julian said, packing the small diner floor. Tell them to wait. Open the champagne. We can't, she snapped. The ice didn't arrive. Warm champagne is vulgar, Julian. Fix this. The line went dead. Julian stared at the phone. It rang again immediately. This time, it was the lead investor of the acquisition fund, the money behind Julian's throne. Thorne, the voice barked. Why are the trading algorithms offline? A minor power fluctuation, Julian lied. We're switching to backups. I'm looking at the live feed from the data center, the investor shouted. The lights are off. The cooling systems are off. If those servers overheat, we lose the transaction logs. That's billions in liability. You told us this takeover was surgical. This looks like a stroke. It's under control, Julian said, sweat beading on his forehead. I'm negotiating the terms now. Negotiate faster, the investor said. Or we pull the capital. You have 20 minutes. Julian lowered the phone. He looked at Silas. The old man was finishing his pie. He wiped the crumbs from his lip with a slow, deliberate motion. The diner was getting hotter. The air conditioning unit rattled and died. The brownouts had reached 4th Street. Outside, the traffic light at the intersection went dark. A cacophony of horns erupted, a discordant symphony of frustration. They're getting impatient, Silas observed. "What do you want?" Julian asked. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a frantic calculation. "You want money? I'll transfer $5 million to an account of your choice. Right now. Call it a consulting fee. Just make the call, get the trucks moving." "I don't need your money," Silas said. "I have a pension." $10 million, Julian offered. "And I keep the port deal. We share the profits 50-50. "No," Silas said. $15 million, Julian shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The cutlery rattled. "Everyone has a number, Silas. Stop pretending you're a saint. You're a businessman. Name the price." Silas looked at Elena. He still doesn't get it. "He thinks he can buy the bridge," Elena said softly. "He doesn't understand he's standing on it." Julian grabbed his hair. He was unraveling. The suit felt too tight. The silence of the stopped city was deafening, broken only by the angry horns. "My reputation," Julian whispered. "The senator is at my wedding. The investors are watching. If I lose this deal, if I look incompetent, they'll eat me alive. They won't just fire me. They'll destroy me." "Yes," Silas said. "They will. That's how your world works, isn't it? You eat the weak. Well, Julian, today you look very appetizing." The satellite phone rang a third time. Julian looked at the caller ID. It was the police commissioner. "Thorne," the commissioner said, "I have a riot starting on the bridge. People are getting out of their cars. They're angry. I don't have the manpower to contain it because my squad cars are boxed in by sanitation trucks. I need those trucks moved. Now." "I can't move them," Julian screamed into the phone. "Then I'm coming for you," the commissioner threatened. "I'm not going down for this chaos. If the city burns, I'm nomming you as the arsonist." Julian dropped the phone. It clattered on the linoleum floor. He looked at Silas. He looked at Marcus, who was cowering in the corner. He looked at Elena, who looked sad, not triumphant. "Please," Julian said. It was a whisper. It was the first honest thing he had said all day. "Stop it." Silas Vane checked his mechanical watch. He wound the stem a few times. "The reach out," Silas murmured to himself. "Right on schedule." He looked up at Julian. "I can't stop it," Silas said. "I didn't start it, Julian. You did. You broke the social contract. You tried to take without asking. You tried to rule without leading. The city isn't striking because I told them to. They're striking because they're tired of men like you." "Tell me how to fix it," Julian begged. "I'll do anything." Silas leaned forward. The playfulness was gone. His eyes were hard as iron. "You can't fix it," Silas said. "You can only leave." The choice wasn't between winning and losing. That option had expired 20 minutes ago when the backup generators at the data center failed. The choice was now between leaving with dignity or leaving in handcuffs. Julian Thorne stood in the center of the diner. His tie was undone. His hair, usually lacquered into aggressive perfection, was falling over his forehead. He looked at the satellite phone on the floor. He looked at Marcus, who had stopped typing and started praying. "You said I have to leave," Julian said. His voice was hollow. "What does that mean?" "It means you resign," Silas said. "Not just from the takeover. You resign from the board. You divest your shares. You issue a press release stating that due to unforeseen logistical challenges, the merger is canceled. And then you get on a plane." "I can't resign," Julian whispered. "This deal is my career. If I walk away, I'm toxic. No one will touch me." "You are already toxic," Silas corrected. "You're the man who broke the city because he didn't want to pay the toll. The only question is whether you want to be toxic in Zurich or toxic in a federal prison cell." Elena spoke up. She was still sitting in the booth, her wedding dress ruined, but her posture was straighter than it had been in years. "Do it, Julian," she said. "Make the call, or I make a call to the press and tell them exactly why the garbage truck stopped." Julian looked at her. He saw the woman he thought he owned. He realized he never really knew her. He thought she was an asset. She turned out to be a liability. He picked up the satellite phone. His hands were shaking. He dialed the number for the lead investor. "It's Thorne," Julian said. He closed his eyes. "Pull the plug, the deal is dead." "Yes, I know. Yes, I understand the consequences." He listened for a moment to the shouting on the other end. It sounded like a tiny, angry insect trapped in the plastic casing. "I'm stepping down," Julian said. "Effective immediately. Marcus will send the paperwork." He hung up. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the sound of $1 billion evaporating. Silas nodded. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out the cheap flip phone again. "The choice is made," Silas murmured. He opened the phone. He dialed a number. "It's done," Silas said into the receiver. "Turn it back on." He closed the phone. "Is that it?" Julian asked. He looked exhausted. He looked like a balloon that had been pierced. "You just make a call." "That's how systems work, Julian," Silas said. "You push the button, the machine stops. You release the button, the machine starts. You just have to know which button is which." Julian looked at Elena one last time. He opened his mouth to say something, perhaps an apology, perhaps an insult, but he found he had nothing left. He turned and walked out of the diner. Marcus followed him, clutching the tablet like a shield. They stepped out into the humid, silent street. They didn't have a car. They didn't have an entourage. They just had the long, gray walk back to a hotel room where the champagne was warm and the guests were gone. The restart wasn't instant. Cities don't turn on like light bulbs. They wake up like giants. It starts with a rumble in the chest, then a twitch in the limbs, and finally the eyes open. Silas and Elena sat in the diner and listened. First, it was the sound of air brakes releasing. Hiss thud. A garbage truck down the block engaged its gear. The engine roared to life, a deep diesel bellow that shook the window pane. Then a horn honked. Not an angry horn, but a signaling horn. Move out. Then the traffic lights flickered. The dead black glass turned to amber, then to a steady, authoritative red. "The power is back," Maria said from behind the counter. She pointed to the ceiling fan. It groaned, spun once, and then began to chop the thick air with a rhythmic whoop whoop whoop. The air conditioning unit kicked in with a rattle. The temperature in the diner began to drop. Silas finished his coffee. It was cold now, but he drank it anyway. Waste was a sin. "What happens to him?" Elena asked. She was looking out the window, watching the traffic begin to flow. The knot of cars loosened. The arteries of the city opened up. "Julian?" Silas asked. "He goes to Europe. He spends a few years on a yacht complaining about how he was sabotaged. He'll write a book. No one will read it. Eventually, he'll try to start a hedge fund. It will be mediocre. He won't come back." "No," Silas said. "The city has a long memory. The unions won't work with him. The banks won't lend to him. He's been marked as bad for business. That's a stain that doesn't wash out." Elena looked down at her dress. The mud had dried into stiff, gray patches. The silk was torn at the hem. It was a ruin of a garment. "I have nothing," she whispered. "I left my phone. I left my wallet. I walked out of my life, Silas. I don't have a home." Silas reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a checkbook. It was old-fashioned, leather-bound. "Your father left you a trust," Silas said. "Julian tried to absorb it into the merger, but I moved it last week. I put it in a small credit union in Jersey. He couldn't find it." Elena stared at him. "You knew he would try to take it." "I knew he would try to take everything," Silas said. "That's what men like him do. They mistake appetite for capacity." He stood up. His knees cracked. He adjusted his flat cap. "Go home, Elena. Not to the penthouse. Go to the old house in Queens. The key is under the mat. It's always been under the mat." "And you," she asked, "what do you do now?" Silas looked around the diner. The lunch rush was starting. Men in hard hats were coming in, talking loudly about the weird blackout, ordering burgers, laughing. The rhythm was returning. "I finish my Tuesday," Silas said. "I have to go to the docks. A shipment of steel is coming in. If I'm not there to sign the manifest, the foreman gets anxious. You saved the city, Elena said, and no one knows. That's the point, Silas said. If they knew, they'd be scared. It's better they think it was just a glitch. People sleep better when they think the world is broken rather than guided. Silas Vane walked out of the rusty spoon and into the rain. It was a lighter rain now, a cleansing drizzle that washed the soot from the sidewalks. He buttoned his wool coat. He checked his watch. He was 40 minutes behind schedule, but that was acceptable. The world would wait for him to catch up. He walked past the police station. The sergeant was back at his desk, yelling into a phone. The cruiser was gone. The balance of power had shifted back to the center. Silas didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired. Tension is heavy. Holding up a bridge takes effort, even if you're just the gravity. He thought about Julian Thorne. He thought about the arrogance of the man. Julian believed that power was a thing you grabbed, a trophy you put on a shelf. He didn't understand that power was a current. You couldn't hold it, you could only channel it. If you tried to grab it, it burned you. Silas reached the waterfront. The cranes were moving again. Giant metal arms swung containers through the gray sky. The sound was industrial music, clanking chains, roaring engines, shouting men. It was the heartbeat of the city. A young foreman ran up to him, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Vane," the foreman shouted over the noise. "We had a hell of a time, everything stopped. The computers went dark, we lost an hour." "I know," Silas said. He took the clipboard. He signed his name at the bottom, S. Vane. "What happened?" the foreman asked. "Was it a cyber attack, a grid failure?" Silas handed the clipboard back. He looked at the massive ship sitting in the harbor, heavy with goods from across the world. He looked at the trucks lining up to take those goods to the stores, to the people, to the life of the city. "It was just a reminder," Silas said. "A reminder of what?" "That the engine doesn't run without oil," Silas said. "And you can't drive the car if you don't respect the road." The foreman looked confused, but he nodded. He didn't need to understand the philosophy, he just needed the signature. Silas turned and looked back at the skyline. Somewhere in one of those tall glass towers, a wedding reception was being cleaned up by staff who hadn't been paid yet. Somewhere, a bride was washing her face and realizing she was free. Somewhere, a young tycoon was packing a suitcase. It was a good day. Silas reached into his pocket and wound his watch. Click, 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 it was ticking strong. He walked toward the end of the pier. The water was dark and choppy. He liked the water. It was honest. It didn't care how much money you had. It only cared if you could swim. He stopped at the edge. He breathed in the smell of salt and diesel. Julian Thorne had tried to buy the city. He failed because he thought the city was for sale. He didn't realize that the city wasn't a product. It was a living thing, and you don't own a living thing. You just feed it and hope it doesn't bite you. Silas smiled, a dry, small smile. "Everyone wants to be the king," Silas said to the empty air, "until they realize the crown is heavy and the throne is just a chair."